Hello, hello. Good, man. Thanks for the wait. Thanks for waiting. Sorry about... Thank you for waiting. Sorry about the wait is what I was trying to say, and I was crossing the two sentences over.
No worries. I watched the game. Good game.
Cheers, man. GG's. It was good fun.
And did I hear you say that you cast me earlier?
Yeah,
Maybe?
that's right. Mr.
Awesome.
Mass Hellbat Marine. Unfortunately, 0-0. I was like, oh, I think you're going to get this, because he just like wasn't respecting your composition, wasn't making enough banelings. I was like, oh, yeah. And then I was like, it's 0-0 versus 2-2. Uh-oh. It's 0-0 versus 3-3. There's ultras. Ah!
I had no gas, and there was so I typically play very gas heavy, and going down to one gas, I just couldn't do it. But it was a fun game, so I sent it in anyway.
Yeah, with that sort of style, you kind of have to just go like, if you're gonna go past 2 base, that you kind of need to go upgrades and like ridiculous amount of expansions and and rally like a psychopath and hope they are not good at dealing with an endless rally.
Yeah, I saw the first game, and I think he did a good job. Like he was going for upgrades instead, and he didn't have any medevacs. And I think that's really what you should do.
Makes a big difference, actually. Yeah, like even you can even like skip stim and go just concussive and shields or something like that. I mean, stim's still great. It's just, you know, you want to remove your temptation of hitting that stim key when you don't have medevacs out, right? But it's always a fun challenge, right? It's just a very drastically different way of playing the game, so it kind of forces you out of your comfort zone and can create some really odd scenarios.
Yeah, it caused a lot of fun games on my end. So yeah, that'll be great. So cool. I've got 50, more than 50 replays that I've saved for coaching. So there's no way that we're gonna get to all those. But maybe we go through a few.
Yeah. Should we start with some goal setting before we choose the replays?
Sure.
So
we can start with some goal setting. I've made some pretty good notes on the Google Doc here.
Yeah.
Notes for one. I guess this is 119. So
and that's all. Is that's all TvT notes?
That's all TvT notes.
Okay, cool, awesome.
Yeah, I put everything in red that's like new.
Oh.
Yeah, and it should be in most recent order is on top.
Okay, we've only done one session together so far, right? We just did that really long session. I think. Or
yeah. So I ordered a 5-pack before, but this is my.
Okay. This is the second
session total.
Right.
My second session of this 5-pack.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I have a note here that we did go way overtime on one. We counted that as just an extra quarter, so it says we got 3.75, 2.75. So we can, if we hit a good point where we finish 10, 15 minutes early, we've covered a lot of info. We can do that in this session or a future one.
Perfectly fine. Yeah,
we'll just see how it goes. If we're like, oh, we've covered so much, you know what, we might as well call it quits. But we'll see how we go with that. Awesome. Okay, so coaching 20th January. We've got a bunch of TvT notes. You're having a hard time defending your third. You start your third a lot before your opponent. They have a lot bigger army. They kill your third or pin you down, and then they have a macro advantage. Okay, so I mean, well, let's start with that. I imagine if we're doing any sort of 3cc build. Oh, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so let's get a replay going. Bam. Just
sure. Here, I'll get into game.
Yeah.
Here's one where I don't. Let's see. I want to find a good one for this because I've got a ton of them. Can't defend the third is what I named this one, so that should be a good one.
All right. So yeah, the kind of solid way to play TvT. Just make me the host if you can.
Yep.
There we go. Is usually non-stop unit production of some sort. There are ways to cut corners on that, as long as it's in a way where we're gonna still be able to stop the 2 Ravens, the 3 tanks, the 12 Marines, the Cyclone, whatever it is that comes across the map at 6 minutes or thereabouts. So let's quickly review your build order. What would you summarize your style as while I read through the notes?
Well, this is a very heavy bio build. So this is the build that we went over last time with. So it's a Rax first, very safe defensive build.
That was an accident. That signal, ignore that.
What happened?
Oh, I pinged the map. but just ignore it. It was an
Oh,
accident.
no problem. Yeah. Yeah, so this is a pretty standard game. Medevac goes across, gets a few kills on SCVs, comes back.
What was that? A mine drop? Yeah.
No, it's just a Marine drop.
Just 8 Marines, was it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But then that happens. I end up defending against that pretty well. Take the third, and then bad things happen.
Yeah. He's doing a really silly battle mech build.
Yeah.
It's really bad once you hit a certain amount of bio, like the Cyclones are just worthless. Thankfully, he is smart enough to swap into tanks now. Okay, if he kept building Cyclones, it's just really silly. But he's just doing a small. So this is actually a viable way of playing mech. But, I mean, okay. We're still going Vikings rather than Medevacs, which is okay. Did you realize he was playing mech at this point?
Yeah. I know that. I'm just kind of sticking to the build. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't really have a reaction. So I go ahead and send 2 Liberators across the map. I'm splitting my bio up a little bit.
All right, so let's talk about a reaction versus mech, because that's something we've got to have some game plan. So, I mean, I want you to steer the direction initially with this rather than me just tell you things. I think that's always better because you have more inherent understanding. So, off the top of your head, let's riff some ideas. What do you think should be your plan against mech? What changes? What's the game plan? What are we doing?
I think that I need more Liberators because I have to do something to defend against the tanks, and I need more Vikings. So I should probably be throwing down more starports as a reaction to mech. I have a real hard time because like if he has a bunch of tanks and I have a bunch of Marines, tanks beat Marines. So like I don't really know what to do other than that. I could potentially swap into BCs, but that's a really heavy investment.
Yeah, so basically you can go for the air superiority, which you just outlined. There was no details to that, so if we choose that, we're going to need to add a lot of details, a lot of exact points, right? We can't just have a vague idea. But the other option, you said Marines don't beat tanks, but what advantage do Marines have over what do you have as a bio player over the mech player? What's your advantage?
I'm more mobile. I can move around faster.
Bio. So we have mobility. So how can we use mobility? What are a few ideas that you think you could do with a pure bio, just still building just Marines, Marauders, tanks? How could we use that?
With this is the fight that's bad.
Ignore the fight. Don't worry. Let's just talk about theory here. Remember, this is just eye candy. We always want to wrap up the theory first. So we have clear ideas. So even turn your monitor off if you have to, and just look at your second monitor with the document, because way more important to think it through. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll look at my document. I would like to have drops with those Marines. The problem is, like, in this game, he's surrounded his base with turrets. And it's just, I don't have good entry points for those drops. And then his third is a planetary fortress.
Okay, so let's go look at his main base in this replay. So you've said his base is surrounded by turrets, but that's one turret. So if you boosted 4 medevacs in, you wouldn't even lose a single one, and you'd have 4 medevacs of bio in his main. So
yeah, that would have been better.
It's really important to remember that turrets don't actually completely shut down drops unless they invest in a crazy amount of them, and they're often not going to get that crazy amount until much later in the game.
So like, as you can see, like I am now at this point in the game, 12 minutes, trying to do this bio drop. But at this point, I've lost a lot of my bio. I'm losing my third. My tanks are too far back. I have no air superiority. And so, like, the backstab that I have here isn't going to achieve as much as what I need it to.
Yeah, but let's think about theory. Let's ignore... You're dead in this game. You're dead a long time ago. Completely ignore that, but think about it. He's way ahead, and he's still got openings there. On the left-hand side, yeah, we'd lose a few drops, but if we dropped in there, we'd be able to unload them, right? We'd be able to stop this base and this base being built on location, which your opponent should never get away with. So if you think about it, drops is definitely something which can be huge, okay? So drops, and we can add a sub point, just dive through turrets is actually a totally valid thing. Because the thing is, if you think about it, like look at this, what's he got to deal with your Marines? This is like a pretty shitty late tiny drop, but it's going to do a lot of damage. And if you're doing that earlier in the game, but Mech is just so bad at responding to it. If they don't have a tank pre-sieged, or if you just drop on the tank and kill it, they're like, fuck, if they don't have a bunch of like tanks popping out conveniently right then, it takes them forever to get back up to deal with that. And the thing is, what else can we do? If we've got mobility, we have map control, right?
Yeah.
So how can we use that to get ahead versus a mech player?
I mean, I've had a lot of games where I have great map control and I see like an army with tanks coming across, and I see it, and it like I get the scouting advantage, but then I just don't know what to do. Like
Okay.
I don't know how to react, because I feel like I would need liberators, or I would need more something to take out the tanks.
Well, if you engage them when they're not sieged, they lose pretty badly, right? Also,
Yeah.
if you come from two sides, you're infinitely stronger if you can sandwich them or pincer them in any way. So map control gives you the ability to ambush them, or at least force siege ups and just disengage. So what does that do? That buys a lot of time. What else does map control give us? It gives us the ability to mass expand and out expand our opponent, right?
Yeah.
So those are the big advantages of bio versus it. Now, there are some things. If we were to go bio, we would need to go more tech labs and more marauder production, right? Just to add a bit more damage versus those tanks, a bit more chunky units that don't get destroyed by the Hellions and potentially mines quite as bad. Don't get me wrong, marauders still get wrecked by tanks pretty hard, but that just gives you that flexibility. So
Yeah.
that is option 2. There's option 1 and there's option 2. Now, option 2, okay, more tech labs. What else? Take a very fast 4th and 5th. Go mass barracks up to 12 racks eventually. Dive drops from as early on as possible, and just look to trade and slow them down from getting established on 3 to 4 bases with a big fuck off army, right? So these are the things, and then your end game, if you do that style, is nukes. Now, we're not saying we have to do this style, but we can see there a whole big list of notes and details that would allow bio to work, right? Much more focused. So what is something else there? Well, we said dive drops from the very start. What does that mean? Don't build any Vikings. Just go pure medevac. So if you think about it, you see, if you're building Vikings and then you have less Vikings than him, your Vikings are literally worthless, right? It's not just that. It's they're more of a positional unit, but he's got so many more tanks than you. It's like, well, if you're playing bio, you don't need to have the air advantage. If he has Vikings and libs, that's fine, because he can try to move out. If you look on this map, you see where I signal?
Here, let me go back to the game.
Okay, sweet.
Okay, looking there. Yeah.
So imagine he pushes out there, and then you just kind of move up with your bio, and he's like, oh, fuck, I gotta siege all my tanks and libs. It's going to take him like 10 minutes to get across the map. So the Vikings and the tanks, anytime they're not actually sieged up on one of your bases, they don't really give themselves that big of an advantage. So anytime you're backstabbing them, you're slowing them down from moving across the map, you're dropping in their mineral lines, these units don't really complement each other that well. And if you create enough movement, you'll often find a scenario where all their Vikings get detached and accidentally run over some Marines. Like if there's enough action going on, there's like one moment of the Vikings flying over your bio, and bam, you kill a ridiculous amount of resources with one stim. And that's where the kind of movement lies, and that strength is. And your end game, you can just start nuking their bases, queuing up nukes in front of their bases, on their planetaries, on the edge of their tanks. So if you look at where his tanks are sieged at this base down here, you wouldn't nuke on the tank. You nuke like a whole bunch of spaces in front of it. So even if they scan, you're out of tank range. You're just shooting it there, and you're still going to hit the tank, maybe barely skim the planetary, but you can do it from there, and you can make the nukes go closer and closer, and that's what you do. But technically, we don't really want to get to that stage as always. We'd much rather, dive drops in, have big bio forces stim in. Anytime we get in the natural and into the main production with a big ball of Marine Marauder, we win the game. Anytime we get big drops in the mineral lines, it can be huge. So that's that style. And the other one is the air superiority, which you outlined at first, which is basically you saying, I'm going to mech you. So you need to hard shift into the air control. Marines, but suddenly not as important. Bio upgrades, not as important. So if you want to do the air superiority style, it's like, oh, we know he's going mech. Okay, let's go back. And let's visualize kind of just how hard we would swap into that. And I always show this great game of Kelazur doing this versus Hero Marine. So I guess I might as well do it now. I always like this referencing this game. Makes me very happy. Kelazur, Hero Marine. Let me just get you a time-stamped. All right, here we go. Copy video URL at current time, and let's put that in. I'm gonna put that in Discord. Can you post it from there into the document? Sorry, I grabbed it on a different computer.
No problem.
There you go. It's in chat for anyone who wants to check it out as well. And awesome. All right, so I mean, if you look at that VOD and you can just skim through from that point I linked, so you can just skim forwards and backwards a few minutes, right? And basically, what you're gonna see is if you look at Kellezer, he spotted its mech and he was doing some drops and stuff, and he's literally saying, you know what, I actually am going to get a second starport. I believe he's building a reactor on it already at like 7 minutes, and go straight into Viking production because he's doing that air superiority reaction. And I think he might have built 2 eBays, but he only uses 1. He's like, I'm actually like, all that matters is having the air advantage. So he's like, I'm just going to go +1 weapons. He might have canceled the second engineering bay. And actually get a second starport off just 3 barracks. Literally doesn't even have a 4th and 5th racks. Or he does actually, but he goes second starport first. Yeah, second starport just after the 4th and 5th racks. And he just goes like non-stop Vikings, gets both of them on reactors, takes the Viking control, and then starts using libs and goes up to even a 3rd starport, and even upgrades them with the armory as well. And what's cool here is he's still building bio, but he just is going upgrades one at a time for it. He's still building tanks. That's okay. But the idea is basically, you know, anytime he wins the air battle, sieges up on the enemy army, if they unsiege, then his bio can stim in. Anytime Hero Marine tries to walk through the lib zones and just to the other side to jump on him, the bio is great. Because he's got a smaller, less upgraded bio force, it's very careful. Like, he can't just tank, you know, dive into a sieged up army with it. It's there to take advantage once his air superiority, his libs and his Vikings get control. So I think about 10 minutes game time, we're going to see a fight. So if you go to about 10 minutes in the game timer, which is about 33 minutes 30, we're going to see this like real slow methodical push here with the tank sieging up. And Hero Marine kind of jumps on him, and Kellezer is like, oh, fuck that noise, and pulls back. Even though he's winning the air battle, he literally unsieges, picks up his tanks, pulls his bio completely away. Because even when he's like kind of winning the air battle, which he does end up just barely losing, he's like, I can't even take 1 volley of those tanks. I will get wrecked. I am investing all in the air army. He ends up having to pull back from this fight, but it was a good trade. It was a decent trade. And let's find the next fight in this one. Probably 14 minutes or something. Let's see. Here we go. 11 minutes in game time. So Hero Marine does a big counter push. And you're once again going to see the bio just trying to stay back. And Kellerzer's just waiting until he has that Viking advantage.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, yeah, you got a Thor and some Cyclones, but it doesn't matter. Because, yeah, my bio just avoids ever engaging into your tanks. I'm really, really patient. And, you know, he's playing it like a mech player, really, right? Like, it's all just about the Vikings and the libs and the tanks moving about. And he just buys time. He ends up having to give a base.
Yeah.
But then he crushes this army. And notice it's like his bio only engages when Hero Marine tries to move through the lib zones at 1240. And this is like a brutal fight where it's like, oh, bio's really good. But if that bio took even 1 fully sieged up tank volley from the army, it would just disappear. So he does this kind of very modified style where, like I said, I don't even think of it as bio from Kellezer. It's like he's going Skyterran with a little bit of bio tank support on the ground. And really cool adjustment. And I think a lot of players, especially if they don't expect this, they won't be as quick to get out Cyclones and Thors and all this extra anti-air on the ground. Right. And you'll have a lot of games where it's like much more like, oh, you just come out, kill his Vikings because you have 3 or 4 Vikings more, you siege libs on the tanks, they try to unsiege and run away and you stim on them and you just win the game like right there. I think that'll actually be quite common until you play players who are like really careful about the air control.
Yeah, I just saw the end of the fight at 12:47, and that was just a very decisive win for Kellezer. And then now the Vikings have landed and they're taking out a bunch of stuff.
Exactly. So just watch the tail end of that fight, and then we can kind of go back to the replays and the document. So yeah, the important thing here is, hey, all right, let's have a game plan against Mech, and it can be rush up to that. That's a much more, you can see kind of, it's like you're playing your own Mech. It's more technical units, more slow siege, unsiege. The bio stuff is very cool. It's more like playing a mass charge lot style as Protoss, like playing a Zerg style where you're, I'm just doing run bys and I'm taking a fast fourth. Let's take a fast fifth, you know, and just dive these drops in the back lines and roam around and basically it's a mixture of backstabbing and then if they push too early, just pincering their army with a two-pronged kind of, you know, sometimes I set up these like 270 or 360 degree surrounds on a mech push. And especially if you catch them with like 4 or 5 tanks unsieging and moving forward, it's like insane how efficiently you can just destroy a mech army. Until they get to like 20 Hellbats and 16, 17 tanks, bio does really well. There's the falling off point, of course, which is the scary point when you play that bio style. That's why it is scary, right? If you end up, you know, just sitting on your ass and not getting the aggression, then it does hurt you. Likewise, though, if you play the Skyterran, you do end up in a technical war. They might escalate their starport production and match you. You play some guys who go really fast to starport themselves, and you'll end up in this very technical, you know, Skyterran game sort of thing. Or maybe you even need to build another factory and kind of go into your own mech. You know, you'll see how you know, we'll see how it goes, right? But essentially, free roaming, mobility, backstabs, drops, counterattacks, and mass expanding, or rushing up to Skyterran. Which one of those tickles us? Which one tickles our fancy?
Yeah, so I think I like the idea of using Skyterran. So let's talk about production. So let's say that I've already dropped my 4 barracks, and then I realize I'm playing against mech, right? So then what do I need to do? Like prioritize dropping to starports, or what does that look like in terms of production?
So we want to go gases ASAP.
Okay.
Only focus on attack upgrades for bio, unless we have extra gas. If we have extra gas, sure, you can do your normal shit, right? But basically, it's like the stop, like, I'll skip a tank to make sure I get my second and third starport going, right? Basically, it's like, you know, these are things we can skip, right? Or we can delay. So we want to go gases ASAP, second starport, and swap onto reactor from a barracks is a great way to do it, or just build reactor, whatever you know works for us, and then it'll be a third star. Actually, you don't need a third starport anymore. Then it would be fusion core down the track, right? The fusion core doesn't have to be immediately. That's later, right? Even just non-range libs are gonna do great. It's just about get the Viking advantage. Even once you have 2 libs, you're in a great spot. So second starport, swap on a reactor from a barracks, fusion core. And then I think we'd still go probably 4th base, just to open up more gas and everything, and probably a third starport, right? Really make sure we can get, you know, 3 reactors, right? Third starport, reactor.
What about swapping the reactors from the Raxes and then building tech labs onto the Raxes for Marauders?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Like especially, yeah. So especially. You know, if we have 4 reactors, then we'd rather have 2 to 3 of those as tech labs, right?
Yeah.
And it's okay to only have 2 tech labs, 6 Marines, 2 Marauders building. That's fine. Marines are still very good. If your opponent doesn't have a lot of mines or Hellbats, like if it's actually pure tank, you actually would prefer to have pure Marine than Marauders, technically. It's just that the Hellions, the Hellbats, and if you're clumped up, the Marines are a little bit worse than the Marauders, but if you spread your units out, come from multiple sides, that's actually good. So a nice balance is good. If it works, we'd rather have 2 or 3 of those tech labs, swap off and let starport build right onto reactor. That's a lovely move. What about your armory upgrades? So, do we go just ship weapons probably then?
Okay.
Some people would probably argue here, no, you should still go vehicle weapons to get +2. Tanks are still an important part of your army. I feel like
it's more important to win that air battle.
Me too.
I think it's more, like you have to have the Vikings win. If you lose the Vikings, then you're dead.
Yeah,
I think so.
I agree. I think that's a good little list we've made there. Then okay, that's about it, right? Basically, just before the fight happens, scan the army. and check you have Viking advantage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Buy another minute and give up a base if you absolutely must, right? It's better to just lose a base, pull your SCVs away, wait for one more round of 6 Vikings to come out, and then you crush the air battle, right? That's worth losing a base. We're losing 550 minerals for an orbital, a couple hundred for the gas. Who cares? If we get our SCVs out, and then we win the air battle, because like, you know how it is. You're down 2 or 3 Vikings. It starts to, spiral a little bit in that fight and gets very cost inefficient. Likewise, if you're up 5 or 6 Vikings, suddenly it becomes insanely cost efficient. It just, it's a slippery slope. If you're down in a mirror match of air battle, woo, you're going to get crazy efficiency out of having a good advantage there. And then obviously when the libs come in, it really can seal the deal. So let's hop out of this game, because I'll actually stay in it for a sec.
Sure.
So let's just visualize those changes. All right, let's go right back to, and we can also talk about some of the other stuff as well, actually, in this game. So let's go back here. All right.
Yeah.
So we know it's okay. After this, we know it's Mech, right? Because multiple cyclones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, bam, bam, bam. Okay, cool. All right, let's stabilize. All right, well, we're putting guys back on gas. I'll give you another 20 seconds to figure your shit out there, since it's a bit of chaos. Okay. So, if you look at this situation, walk me through. What do you think you'd do?
Okay, so I actually have a pretty good amount of money right now. So I think what I would do is take those 2 front barracks, cancel the Marines on those, jump those off, build tech labs on them, build 2 starports right there. I have the money to do it.
Why not?
And then start building 2 Vikings on my starport that I already have. Control group all 3 starports and get ready to build probably like 4 Vikings, 2 Liberators at a time, and make that my priority. With any other money that I have at the end of my build cycle, build Marauders and Marines, to still have a bio on the back, as well as maybe a tank or 2. And once I have the money, expand to a 4th.
Cool. And obviously, that 3rd would land. You'd immediately take the gases there, set your rally points over. So you could even, as it's like, lift up your 3rd, tell it to land, box SCVs, build gases immediately, right? And then and that way you can start mining them the second it lands. I think that's great, but only Viking production. Until you actually have the air superiority. And if you do a scan or a bit of scouting, usually you can sense when that is pretty well. You're like, yeah, after these 4 Vikings I built, I know I've got more than him. It's fine. I can add 2 or 3 libs in. But, give yourself a bit of breathing room, because the libs really don't contribute much to the Viking battle. Just having more Vikings is better there. So it's all about take the Vikings, and ideally we just want those, like, we could even, win an air battle fight. And if we don't have libs, that's fine. We can like pull back from their mech army and just buy our time. Okay, we've got 2 libs barely as they're like sieging on our 3rd base, Even though we've already won the air battle, we can leave that to the last possible second. Once you've got air control, you can go a little bit crazy with it. You can be like, oh, I just crushed his army and I've got 8 more Vikings than him because we killed all of his. Like, let's build 1 full round of libs so I can have some sieging mineral lines, some with my army, and then we can go back to like more Viking production and still maintain that advantage.
Landing Vikings on tanks?
It really depends. It's very situational. Like, if there's only a couple tanks and you land right on top of them so they can't shoot each other, it's great. If you really need it to win a fight, it's really great. I mean, with this style, you should almost never be doing it, though, because as long as you have Liberators, just let them do the work. There's no reason to throw the Vikings away. Like, there will be situations where it's efficient, but since we only care about having air control, throwing that away could lose us the game. Like,
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Awesome, man. So that's your transition. I love that you kind of map that out there. Just that mental process of kind of looking at this game, going, okay, those move there, build tech labs, get 2 starports down. Since I got the money, why not? Bit later, 4th base and fusion core. Great. This is all fantastic. Let's go back in this game now and let's check your opening, because you're having struggles with the early skirmishes and what's going on from there. So likely we need to change the build order just a little bit. And I've done it with my own as well, because I also started having some troubles here and there with defending the early pushes. And I said, you know what? The better way to play, it's the way all pros play TvT, is just always getting a quicker 3rd gas to make sure we can keep building these tech units at the start. The Cyclone, tanks, a Raven or even a second Raven if we want to go, but a Raven into a few Vikings potentially. You know, whatever your standard thing is here, making sure there's less downtime on these production facilities, because that's the big thing that costs a lot of people. And you know, things like, I think that reactor might have had a bit of downtime, by the way. Let's just quickly double check that. So we queue up a Marine straight away. A Marine was a little slow to queue up and a little slow to start the reactor. So a bit of downtime on that. Being able to build lots of Marines is really, really nice. Let's check if our starport goes down immediately. So factory, we've already got the SCV rallied, which is great. Starport goes down immediately, which is very nice. Tech lab immediately. Can get that cyclone straight away. Awesome. This is looking real good. So yeah, so the problem we're going to have here is you'll see the gaps in production, right? So you start a medevac, and the medevac does make it a little bit more viable. We do a little swap-a-rooney, but we're not going to be able to start both a Raven and a tank immediately, right? We're a little slow to swap the starport around, but look at that.
Yeah.
You can see that, like, oh, it would be actually really hard to build both those, and we're not building anything out of the factory. And then we go double gas on the third. And you can do it this way, but we do lose a little bit of production. It's such a nice way of doing it, though, taking both gases at the third at once. But yeah, it is something where we just missed too much factory production there. So you know what? We actually could keep the build the same way, just focus a bit more on tank production would be one way to make this a little bit safer. Yeah, and we can afford to have those 4 barracks come down a bit later. So at the moment we're just a bit too powery with like rushing the E-bays, rushing the 4 barracks. And I used to do the exact same thing. And you can see we've only got 2 tanks here at 630, which is bad. And not having one sieged up at the front is bad. So this tank location, I'm not the biggest fan of it. It can be nice if they try to elevator push from the low ground a little bit. But yeah, I would always make sure I have a tank sieged at the front. This is rough that he does this crazy little weird push and gets away with it. Yeah. So I think we'll leave the build order the same because you're comfortable with it, to be honest. We're just going to focus on tank production harder, okay? So let's go back and confirm the build order real quickly. So at this point, we're going to swap the factory around with the starport. Starport needs to remember to swap around as well. Yeah, and then we just need to be more consistent on the tanks. So it should be third CC. It should be double gas right after that, right? That's like the next thing you normally do. Third CC. So you
the third CC.
You do go double E-bays first this game. Let's make sure that third and fourth gas goes down right after the CC, and let's make sure we're prioritizing non-stop tank production from the moment that Raven starts, basically. So these are going to be our safety notes. Okay. Ooh. Sorry, we'll leave all your verse mech notes intact there, and we'll just push those down. Opening notes. Non-stop factory starport production from the moment our Raven starts, right? That's when we should have no income interruptions, unless we're greedy and we want to power. Third and fourth gas as soon as third CC goes down. Like next in order before eBays. And I think the other thing we can probably kind of put in as part of this is continual marine, continual production, etc. And then add all 4 barracks at once, just a little bit later. Okay? So at the moment, you're kind of like, oh, I want to get my barracks. But realistically, that often tends to be a thing where like, I need the Marines. I need the Marine production up. I can't have it too delayed. And you can't. But what really keeps you safe for the first 9-10 minutes of the game is actually the factory and the starport units. So we absolutely can afford it. And the reason we want to just delay that is because otherwise, like here when we put these barracks down, we're tempted to like do that and then not have the money to queue up another Raven. Or if we're swapping to immediately queue 2 Vikings the moment that starport lands on the reactor, right? Maybe we skip a few Marines off this barracks before it swaps back with the starport. So just make sure we throw all 4 at once. That way it's also all batched up as one nice thing. And it kind of just removing the temptation to power, right? Which otherwise I think is going to be a big one. Like if we look at your starport now, it lands and it's like, we need to be like Viking immediately. You know, we need Marines pumping out immediately. We need tanks pumping immediately. Like, you know, and if we had all that going a little bit more, that's you just give us a lot of safety, a lot more comfort. And that should be great. I guess if we want to add a few more notes here, excuse me, at the opening, you saw no command center with your SCV
Yes.
and a wall off. So you know he's going a faster factory than you.
Yes, that's very typical. I run into that a lot.
Do you change anything in your build order?
Sometimes I build the CC on the high ground instead of having it on the low ground.
I don't think you need to do that if their buildings are at home, because you go for this fast bunker, which is good.
Yeah.
That bunker, yeah.
I've had a lot of games where having the CC on the high ground keeps the SCV that's building it from being sniped, or keeps the attack from getting in, and it's been a lot safer. I figure that since I'm building the CC before they're building their CC, even if I have to float mine, I'm still going to be ahead.
Potentially, it takes away your advantage though, and it's something we should easily be able to defend. So if their SCV is getting damage on you, just swap it with another SCV, bring a fresh one down. If your Reaper's not in position, because it's sitting on the edge of the main, reposition that Reaper closer to your ramp so it can react quicker. Try to do real little minor changes, because it does actually slow you down a lot having the command center on the high ground. It slows a few things down a little bit. Yeah, the other thing is just like, I guess that there was the moment with the drop where we didn't really know what was happening in this game, and then we moved out with the drop. So if we want to be a little bit safer, some bonus points we can work in for more, safety and information in general is, because this could have been a proxy starport. And there could be 4 Hellions unloading in our main, or 4 Hellions diving past the bunker into the natural, and a Liberator flying in the main, and you're reasonably well set up for it with this build order right now. But what if it hit at just after 4 minutes when your drop's just left? That is a problem. So if that starts happening, things like that, where you're kind of like moving out with a drop and they're hitting you with that aggression, I mean, you can just end up really screwed up if they run in right now. So that's a small thing. If this doesn't affect you, don't change anything, right? But I'm writing these notes, so if it starts happening, we want to be a little bit more on point. So one thing I like to really do, by the way, so if we're really on point with that barracks, Reaper, as soon as it finishes, Marine immediately, Reactor immediately, more Marines immediately, you will get 2 Marines in the front, a Marine in the front bunker, 2 on the high ground very early, which means, if 2 Reapers jump in, it's not the end of the world. Those 2 Marines, can fight against 2 Reapers okay, especially because 2 more are about to pop out, right? Pull a few SCVs if you absolutely have to. Your Cyclone's not too far away, but that Reaper can be on the other side of the map. So this is something I really like to do, is basically 3 minutes, or let's say, about 3 minutes, send Reaper to wait on edge of map. When they pressure you, click it into their mineral line in main. The other thing we want to do with that is at 3:15, poke into main. So jump into main. Often they're not in position at that point. Jump into on the ledge, because they're either coming to pressure you or something else. And obviously this depends on the meta. But the idea is you jump in right now. 3:15. Let's go look. 3:50. So we get there maybe 3:20, 3:30. And in this case, you would obviously just get shot by the Marines, immediately pull back if you're watching, or you lose the Reaper. Not the end of the world. The other thing we can do, jump into main and check production. So the reason we do that is if you jumped in right now, you'd be like, oh, that's a very quick starport.
Yes.
That's fine. How do you know it's quick? Well, you look at yours. Yours isn't done. That one's already got an add-on finishing, right? And often with a normal build, you can actually kill the SCV building the factory or the starport because it's right next to the jump-in ledge, and then just run back to this. See where I'm signaling? Little hiding place. And like I said, the more safe one is literally, it's just if they do any pressure, you click that Reaper into the main mineral line, and it's automatically going to scout what their follow-up is and potentially do massive damage while they're microing. Could kill 5 or 6 SCVs sometimes if they don't pay attention. But that can be a nice thing to get some bonus scouting. Like I said, these are just options, but something we can do with the Reaper there. The other one is we can also say verse delayed CC. We can have a little reaction, can't we? And that can be go Viking instead of medevac. And don't do the drop. So you just go Viking into Raven, and you just sit there defensively. And you basically say, this way I leave no openings. If a Liberator comes in or a drop, I've got a Cyclone and a Viking to deal with it. I can always bring the Cyclone down to the natural to help my bunker defend. If they try to run in with Hellions and Reapers or anything, I've got 4 Marines in a bunker. And suddenly you're like so rock solid, right? So in this game, we could have just gone, oh, immediately build a Viking and just chill. Don't do the drop. Keep macroing up and, you know, get ourselves in a really nice position. By making sure that their earlier tech isn't going to be able to do anything. If a Banshee comes in, Cyclone and a Viking, 1 scan, it's dead. Then the Raven's out for the second Banshee. You're super solid in that scenario. So that's just mapping out a few of the little problems that can happen. So if your opening's getting disturbed at all, that should solve that.
Okay.
All right, man. Let's hop out of that replay. We've just mapped out a lot of details.
A lot of stuff.
So there's 2 big changes to your opening that'll make you way more solid, but there's also that whole branch against Mech, which I think, you know, Mech has periods where it's more than 50% of your games in TvT. Really important to have an idea of how to do that. I do think if you have a tight reaction to it, it's actually quite simple to play against Mech, because most Mech players are used to playing against people who just have no idea, no reaction versus it. They just walk into the tanks and die. So I think until you get to a really high level, a lot of people, you know, just aren't that hard to beat once you've got your reaction down. But it'll take multiple reps for your reaction to feel at all tight and for you to not fuck up your engagements and all that sort of stuff. So it won't happen overnight, but hopefully within a week or 2, if you get a lot of verse Mech games. And if you run into a Mech player on ladder, especially if they beat you, be like, shit, you're really good, man. Stroke that ego a little. Can you want to play some custom games? And if you can get 5 or 6 custom games in a row versus a Mech player, you will get so much better, so much quicker.
Yeah, that happened to me after our most recent previous coaching session with Reaper rushes. So I found somebody who was really solid at his Reaper rush, and I was dying to it. Like I ended up hitting him on the ladder like 3 times in a row, and he Reaper rushed me all 3 times, and I even knew it was coming, and he beat me. And so afterwards, we played some custom games, and I was able to kind of tighten up what my reaction was.
That's the best, man.
Hopefully, you know, do better against that, because that's the kind of thing that happens all the time. I as a part of that, I made my scout my normal scout earlier. So before I was using the 17th SEV, now I'm using the 16th SEV, because I found with 17, whenever I arrive at the base, it's too late. Like I don't have time to not build my CC on the low ground, which is what I need to. That's the biggest part of my reaction.
Yeah, I think with the fast bunker, it's kind of like one of those things. It's like if we're not building like bunkers for safety, command center on the high ground is always a sick thing to do, right? Because our build is like one of these real barracks gas SCV scout. We like any excuse to get a bunker. Often we just do it by default. It's like, yeah, getting that CC on the low ground by default, no matter what. Unless it's Proxy Reaper, of course, in which case, you know, you're building 2 bunkers and trying not to die.
The reaction that I ended up workshopping was to build a fast factory and get a Hellion out.
So you skip the Reaper? Or
well, I build one Reaper, but then I swap into building Marines instead, just so that I can build a factory. Because once I get a Hellion out with Marines, like that's a really good defense against the proxy 3 racks Reaper rush.
Yeah. Were you still building your command center though, on time or
no?
Good.
I was delaying my command center.
Would you get a bunker or 2 or
no?
No bunkers? Oh, wow, you're surviving without bunkers. Well done. You can do that if you pull enough SCVs preemptively. Like, I'll often pull like 6 SCVs before they even jump in if I know it's Proxy Reaper. And they're hanging on the edge of the base with my single Reaper or my single Marina Reaper. Because if you got 6 SCVs already on top of them when they jump, like, you know, it's very easy to begin the hold, right? Some maps you do need...
control grouping my SCVs, because I would constantly need to pull them and then pull them again, and so instead of having to box them each time, control grouping those SCVs and having them ready, so each time they jump in with the Reapers, I would have I could react quickly and pull the SCVs, go attack, and just make it impossible for them to do the damage that they need to do. But
I think it's awesome that you've been mapping that out. Like, that's exactly what it's like. You want to have a problem, and then you look for those minute details that solve it, right? It isn't always changing the build order drastically. Sometimes it's literally just control grouping those SCVs, giving yourself that preparation. And, you know, it's like you do the pullback, right? The front SCV, you pull back because that's the one that gets targeted. And if you're prepared, you're not as frantic. You're waiting with your mouse hovering over that front SCV, and you're clicking it as it starts getting shot, and you're pulling it back. And like I find these games where you're mentally prepared and you're set up, you're saving them all, which is great. It's amazing. So anyway, do you want to do a practice game or two of TvT here?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Chat channel Piggy Drift. Let's see. Is Drift already in here? What's your in-game name? So Drift said his Diamond 1 can play Mech or Bio.
That's great.
I guess we'll probably get Mech.
Either way, and whatever he wants to do.
Yeah. I think either way we get opening practice. I mean, it'd be cool if we do Mech, but we just play our normal build. And if we see Mech, we can adjust, we can adapt. Don't know what Drift's in-game name is. So if you want to join chat channel, all you need to do is go down here and you click /join space Piggy. Join Piggy. And make sure you join that. It might try to autofill Pig's group or some shit. Don't join that. Yeah, I mean, what's your where are you from again, man? What's your are you East Coast, Central?
Me or Drift?
You're Central, right?
Yeah, I'm Central. I'm in Texas.
All right, cool. Go ahead. Host up Central or US West, and should be good. Hey, Drift's here. Very nice. All right, I've suggested Drift to the party as well. This is really great. The fact we have a Dime 1 player who's already put their hand up. Try and get just one. Probably have time for one game here. If it does hit an hour, I will just pause and be like, all right, good shit, keep practicing. I think we've already got enough notes. I don't think we really need to do a homework review or anything at the end. So if you guys are in game, I will just like literally pause the game real quick. I'll say, good job, guys, keep playing. I've got a jet.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you want to be the leader or?
You can make me no, it's fine. You guys can go. It's all good. Oh yeah, make me a ref. Make me a referee. That's all.
See how I do that. Okay.
Yeah, if you just change that to ref, and that way I can pause and unpause for you. But once I leave, you should be able to pause and unpause yourselves.
Cool.
All right.
All right.
Big thanks to Drift. Good luck. Have fun. All right, I'm gonna shut the hell up. So like I said, just play your build. We might get to do the mech reaction. I literally told Drift, just do whatever you want, whatever you feel. But the important thing is those opening changes we just talked about, okay? So once we start the Raven, let's make sure that starport and factory never stop building. Let's make sure we get a quick 3rd and 4th gas right after the CC goes down. And let's just make sure, it's non-stop production and we just wait until we have tons of extra minerals, then we throw all 4 barracks down at once. And that's just going to ensure we're always prioritizing, I'll queue an extra tank even before that one finishes. I'll queue an extra 2 Vikings the moment that starport lands, making sure we're not powering and cutting into that money to rush up our production. We should still get up a nice marine count at a good time, and it shouldn't delay our barracks more than about 30 seconds or so. But it's going to keep us way safer, way more solid. So good luck, man. Kick some ass.
Cool.
All right, guys. I can hear him. He cannot hear me now. You guys can now see the game. Drift is a legend. We're gonna get Drift in. I think I should do a bit more of this lately. I've been trying to get so much raw material into my students' face in a session, and I think it's time for me to take a step back. I was reviewing a coaching session yesterday, and I was like, I think I should stop trying to do the value thing quite as much, because it just overloads students, and let them get a bit of immediate practice. And often I pick up on other things, watching them first person. So it's a bit more, hey, they get a chance to immediately put it into action, but I also pick up on some shit as well. So he was a bit late on gas. Late on gas at start. And we see double racks and a factory. That SCV, oh, look at this little SCV. Unattackable. Get out of there. We're 1 minute 50. That SCV's got to go home. Run.
Command center upgrade complete.
So you know that Reaper's going to pop out in a few seconds. About 2 minutes. Just after 2 minutes is when the Reaper often pops. Sometimes slightly before. Both players are a little late on their Reaper this game, so not super crisp with their barracks gas and production timing. But poo-poo happens is something we tend to say in the industry. And that's a phrase which refers to the fact that, you know, this is an ephemeral world filled with all sorts of feces. Hope you guys are learning a lot. The bunker's going down. I mean, the 2 Reapers could cause trouble, right? Second Reaper's just popping out. Could be 2 Reaper Hellion pressure. But as long as the Marine gets in the bunker, that's gonna be the beginnings of the defense. So once again, the barracks and the reactor is really late. So delayed Reaper, then Marine didn't start immediately, then reactor was slow. So overall, huge delay on early Marines opens us up to a window of trouble.
Add-on complete.
Alright, didn't put Marine in bunker. First mules should always land on high ground. Especially versus these
Command center upgrade.
2 gas,
Add-on
1 base plays. So just lost a mule in SCVs and inflicted very little damage. So there's a big screw up. The Marines should have been there. Maybe even the Marine in the reactor, arguably, right? And once again, drops another mule on the low grounds. This is yeah, huge mistakes here. These depots need to go up. Ooh, just barely. All right, the Marines should be able to get over there and defend, but yeah, I think at this point we lower these depots and get down. So this is all just unnecessary damage due to, like I said, first Reaper was late, Marine was late, reactor was late. This meant there were less units out. Not only that, the units weren't in the bunker the moment it finished. That Marine should be next to the bunker, ready to hop in. Should be waiting next to bunker as it finishes. So this is some unnecessary damage, and now we're behind 3 SCVs when we should be up 3 or 4 SCVs with this opening matchup. So we're going to see a Viking here. Tank is going to build, so he still hasn't lowered that depot, which fucking triggers me so hard, guys. That should always be lowered. If you want to have one raise, that one, because otherwise your units are just unnecessarily rallying extra distances. If this Cyclone wants to get to the low ground, it has to go, and then that's just it just creates an unnecessary block to your movement. So many Terran players do this every game. Always build your first depot here, your second depot there, and never. This shit just triggers me so hard, guys. Okay, so he's forgotten the Raven entirely now. Maybe it was a conscious decision to scrap it from the build. It's an option. It's an option. Forgot to swap factory. And then forgot Raven because of that. I don't know why we're building a depot in the wall. Not really necessary in TvT, but not the worst thing in the world. It does help a little bit against like big stim-in attacks, Hellion run-bys if they're playing mech, that sort of thing. Cyclone's still in the main, which is good. Do we have it control group? Let's take a look. No armies, no units control grouped at all, which grosses me out pretty badly, but fair enough. We're not going to bring it up. Nah. Nah. How is someone's OCD not triggered by this? He's now also created a barrier. I don't think any more tanks or cyclones can get in or out. They might be able to go around that side. They might get stuck on both sides. He's got to lower that depot, man. That shit's triggering me so hard. Depot raised in wall. Delayed all rallies. We're going to find out with this tank. All rally of SCVs and units ability to move between and defend bases. Put guys on gas. Where's that Viking production? Where's that tank production? This is the shit that will win you the game. I mean, is that 5 Vikings already? So I guess I can see why you'd not be as focused on it. But if your opponents go on the Ravens, like, you're going to need a lot of Vikings to just blast them out of the skies, right? To make up for that. We'll see. I like that. There we go. Did go 4 barracks at once, but factory production, tank production, Viking production. You might be like, damn, almost 7 minutes for the barracks? That's pretty bad. That comes down to the early damage. Remember, Kilkenny lost 2 fresh mules and about 4 SCVs and 2 mules on the natural in the early game. That's huge. That is probably, by this point, 800 minerals, maybe more. Which, you know, these barracks could have been a minute and a half earlier. No worries. So that early defense issue was huge. Has no spotting units in the middle of the map right now. So it's cool to have units on the edges, but zero vision through the middle. We could be getting pushed right now. We'd have no idea till it arrives at our base. So that's a huge problem as well, guys. It's not going to get punished this game, but I don't think anyway. But it could be. It could have cost us the game for sure. Building a tech lab here, I think. Oh no, it's all reactive. Oh no, yeah, I did build one tech lab. Cool. No vision of the attack path for a long time, right when the Raven tank pushes normally hit. Would have been completely surprised. Only set up Marines for that vision at 8 minutes. These Marines are what just got set up for that, which is good. So we're just kind of on autopilot here.
Mineral field depleted.
Scan your opponent's production. You should always know if it's mech or bio by this point, so that
I
you can
assume
know.
that he's playing mech.
Yep, you've seen 2 sensor towers. Safe call. All right, get on that transition. Extra starports and good luck. Kick some ass. Don't forget your armory as well. Should have scanned or scouted for mech a bit earlier. If you assumed, could have transitioned faster. Right? So it's going to take us a long time to get up that extra production. And right now, 2 Ravens and 2 Viking advantage, right? So that's really rough. So where is our Viking production? Because it's not continual right now.
Research complete.
Gaps in Viking production. Even after realizing it's mech. Alright, we've got more than enough SCVs, so good to see that production has stopped. Jesus, that's a crazy SCV count, hey. I would have tried to build a 4th on location, personally. Because, you know, it's mech, it's a mobile. So the starports are building reactors themselves. Vikings are coming out. They're not all control group, though. You can see there's 8 Vikings on this control group, even though there's 11 on the map. So that tells me, like, something weird has happened here. Right? Pull back. He has way more Vikings than you. You also don't have all your Vikings in your control group. Keep pumping those Vikings out 6 at a time and pull back.
Add-on complete.
I don't even know where the other Vikings are. I think they're just at the rally point. Rally point's off to the side a little bit. Remember, he's got to wait with this Viking count, guys. Now, his opponent Drift knows what he's doing, which is why he's gone so heavy on the Vikings himself. Because he's mentally prepared ahead of time, having watched the coaching session. That's often not going to happen. But the fact is, there's just so much that could have been done better by Kilkenny as well. So, yeah. You know, it's just, oh, you know, we lose the Viking War and then we lose the game. Maybe? No. They're shooting the Ravens, weren't shift click on the Vikings the way they needed to be. The Marines weren't able to add anything there. Whereas if we kited with those Vikings, we might have lured the enemy Vikings forward. When he pushed, should have kited back and tried to lure him into your Marines. 2 seconds of stim, shift click on his Vikings, and we win the game. We win the air battle. But yeah, so we can go back here and say, okay, we took some damage early, that was rough. But it's just that starport transition was super duper slow.
Base is under attack. Base is under attack.
No need to hang in here. Can get
Yeah.
another one. Can get another one going, man.
Yeah. Cool.
So we'll hop out, get that next lobby hosted up. While you're hosting that up,
Mm-hmm.
what do we feel we could improve? What do we think were the key things there?
One thing that I've been noticing is a consistent feature of this build is that whoever has the most Marines loses.
Well, he was playing Mech, so
Right. So therefore, I definitely had the most Marines. So, but so I really need, like, I think I did a better job building my tanks up front, but
Yeah.
I didn't have enough tanks. He had a lot of tanks. He had way more Vikings than I did. I was investing a lot of resources into Marines that didn't really get me anything, because they just die to everything, and especially to tanks.
yeah. Well, like we said, remember that with this air transition, the bio is secondary. The bio is secondary, right? So let's you were behind on tanks, that's totally fine. He's playing Mech, right? But it's all about the air. The air battle is everything. That's all that matters. So he was ahead on Vikings, okay? So remember the bio is just there to take advantage once our units are good. Now sometimes we can go forward and slow down their siege ups and their pushes, which we could have done definitely with the bio, but more importantly it's just he had more stuff. Yo, down for another? I think Drift maybe isn't down for another. Not sure what's happening.
I don't know
why he's refusing the invites. Thank you so much, Gibbon, for the 18 months. Pult for the auto host. Mr. Jam, thank you for the tier 1 sub as well. You need to relog. You're declining. So it must be bugged.
I can also just restart the game if you...
No, he has to relog. I'm pretty sure even if you make a new lobby, it won't do anything. If it happens again when he logs back in, then it's our issue. But usually isn't. Usually it's the player whose game is just refusing the invite repeatedly. So go back to the start of that game. Right, the very, very, very beginning. So when your barracks finished, do you remember something that was missing that kind of slowed down the very beginning of the build there?
No.
So your gas was a bit late, and your Reaper couldn't start for about 7 seconds.
My initial gas?
Yeah, or you were slow at putting on gas. One of those two.
Yeah. I think that I started the gas a little bit late. I queued up one too many SCVs. I had to cancel the SCV, build the gas.
Okay,
so
cool.
That slowed me down.
Yeah, so that was a small delay, but then when the Reaper popped out, the Marine didn't start for another 10 seconds as well. So it went from a 7-second delay to a 17-second, and then there was a few, I'm not sure how long from the Marine to the reactor, but already having a 17-second delay on the reactor, that's 2 Marines less. They take 18 seconds to build, right?
Yeah.
So also, your bunker finished just before he ran in, but we were sitting on the high ground, and we hadn't moved down there, so he just ran straight into the mineral line and got a fresh mule and a few SCVs, and he did it again and got another fresh mule. So that was where we fell really behind in the early game.
Yes.
So always have that Marine, at least, if not the Marine and Reaper, ready to get in that bunker. Like, basically, when my bunker's like halfway done, I move those units down there and get them ready to get in there, right? As soon as it's done. And I also try to make sure, especially against one of these one base openings, remember you scouted he was one base, but you can even just make this a normal habit. I always drop my first like 3 or 4 mules in TvT on the high ground, just to make sure if Hellions dart past or Hellion Reaper darts past, they only get a few SCVs, because if they get a fresh mule, it's a big kick in the nuts. So because of that, everything was just a little bit delayed. And then, I mean, we could have done the air transition a bit faster, depending on how quickly we knew it was Mech. But I think we were already behind at that point. Just trying to make sure, get the units, the barracks started on time, the gas started on time, hit that opening really tight, have the units in the bunker, and hopefully we don't take as much damage at the beginning of the game. From there, you can work on your scouting, but that's secondary to getting a clean start.
If I notice that it's Mech early on, like I did in that game, should I not drop 4 barracks? Should I, at that point, say, I'm going to only drop 2 barracks, and then I'm going to drop 2 starports at that moment?
Well, how
instead of
about we just drop one extra starport? Because I think even just getting one extra that quick, like the double starport is only if we're like, oh, I'm scouting this really late, right?
yeah.
So absolutely get a second starport as quickly as possible. Remember what I said about you can skip upgrades. So if you realize fast enough and you're like, oh, I don't have enough gas for that stuff, you can cancel +1 armor. +1 or +2 armor on your Marauders doesn't change anything, right? It makes no difference against tank shots. It helps a little against Hellions, helps a tiny bit versus tank shots, but it's not really important, right? Getting the air units out is. So absolutely, you can have as a reaction there, oh, I know it's mech, bam, second starport. You still get the 4th and 5th barracks, but it's just let's get that second starport down ASAP. Now, obviously, to actually use that, you need to make sure you get gases on your third and your third down as quickly as possible, or you're not going to have enough gas.
Bad. That was bad. Yeah.
Oh, no, it was, well, considering where you were in the game, you took the third when you could. You could have taken the gases slightly quicker, but we were a little behind already, so it was okay.
Yeah.
So I've got a jet, but I will leave you two to play a game. GG, well played, mate. Big thanks for the help. I'm saying that to Drift. I got to run, but play some games, please, and kick each other's asses.
Good. I'm trying to invite him to the party.
I don't really have any advice for Drift. Normally I try to give advice, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, I'll let you go. Just
cool.
grind out some games, be methodical. It's all about getting those starport units, right? Like we said. So, it's the most important thing. It's just get into that the moment we know it's mech. Let's start with that nice clean opening in this game, and it should be great.
Cool.
Okay, man. Have a good one.
All right. You too. Thanks.
Laters. All right, guys. Hopefully you got something out of this coaching session. We were out of time, so I could not go any longer there. And let me just leave that lobby. Hopefully that doesn't cancel the countdown. Yeah, it was a little TvT coaching session there. Thank you, everybody. I think that was a nice session.